Before the flood, before Noah built the ark, before God decided to erase everything, something happened, something so disturbing, so outside of natural order that the Bible describes it in just 4 verses, and then never fully explains it. Genesis chapter 6, verse 1 through 4. The sons of God saw the daughters of humans, and they found them beautiful, and they took wives from among them, and their children became the mighty men of old, the heroes of ancient times, the Nephilim, giants, half human, half something else. And God looked down and saw what the earth had become, and decided everything had to go. This is the story the Bible tells, but almost nobody teaches. Who were the Nephilim? Where did they come from? What did they look like? And why does almost every ancient civilization on Earth have the exact same story? Genesis chapter 6. We are generations after Adam and Eve. The human population has spread across the earth, and the text says something extraordinary. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Sons of God, B'nai Ha-Elohim in Hebrew. This phrase appears only 3 times in the entire Old Testament. In Job, chapters 1 and 2, it clearly refers to angelic beings presenting themselves before God. Not humans, not a tribe, not descendants of Seth, angels who came down and chose human women and had children with them, and those children were called the Nephilim. The word Nephilim itself is debated. Some translate it as fallen ones, others, those who cause others to fall. Some translations simply say giants. The Greek translation of the Old Testament, the Septuagint, written 300 years before Christ, translates Nephilim as gigantes, giants, and the text confirms the size. Numbers chapter 13. When Moses sends spies into Canaan, they come back with a report that shocks the entire nation. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Enoch. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. Grasshoppers, that is the scale. We are not talking about tall men. We are talking about something else entirely. For centuries, the full story of the Nephilim was hidden in a book that was excluded from the Bible, but was widely read in ancient times, quoted by the Apostle Jude in the New Testament, referenced by the early church fathers. The book of Enoch, written in the voice of Enoch, the man who walked with God and was no more because God took him, the great-grandfather of Noah. And what Enoch describes is one of the most disturbing accounts in all of ancient literature. According to the book of Enoch, a group of 200 angels made a decision. They gathered on Mount Hermon in what is today northern Israel, Syria border. And they made a pact, a covenant among themselves, to descend to earth, take human wives, and create offspring. They knew it was forbidden. They made an oath anyway. Enoch calls them the Watchers. Their leader's name was Semyaza, and the text gives us the names of all 200. They came down, and everything changed. Their offspring were giants. The text says they consumed all the food of humanity. When the food ran out, they consumed the humans, and then each other, and the earth was filled with violence. This is the world that existed before God sent the flood. The ancient world was obsessed with giants. Not just the Bible, not just the book of Enoch. The Greeks wrote about the Titans, half divine, half human, who ruled the world before the age of man. The Sumerians, the oldest civilization we have found, wrote about the Anunnaki, gods who came from the sky and created or modified humanity. The Egyptians worshipped gods who were depicted as impossibly tall. The Norse had the Jotunheim, the realm of giants. The Hindus wrote of the Asuras, supernatural beings who mated with humans. Every ancient civilization, on every continent, independently has the same story. Supernatural beings come to Earth, mate with humans, create a race of giants. That brings destruction. The probability of all these cultures independently inventing the same myth, the Kurseyakant, is essentially 0. They were all describing the same event from different vantage points, in different languages, across thousands of years, and then there is the physical evidence. In 1833, soldiers digging a mound in Chesterville, Ohio, found 9 skeletons, each one between 7 and 8 feet tall, with double rows of teeth. In 1891, the Smithsonian Institution reported finding giant skeletal remains throughout the American Midwest. In 1912, the New York Times reported the discovery of 18 skeletons in Wisconsin. The smallest was 7 feet 6 inches tall in Lovelock Cave, Nevada. Mummified remains of red-haired giants were found in 1912, with skulls significantly larger than modern humans. The Paiute Indians had an oral tradition about exactly these beings, whom they called the Sitika, red-haired cannibals that they had been at war with for generations. They sealed them into the cave and burned it shut. Every discovery, recorded, documented, published in newspapers, and then quietly filed away by institutions like the Smithsonian, that critics claim suppressed the evidence for over a century. The flood was supposed to end it. Noah's family, 8 people, were specifically chosen because they were pure in their generations. The Hebrew word is tamim, meaning without corruption, without contamination. But the Nephilim appear again after the flood. How? The text doesn't explain, but scholars suggest that the contamination had already spread into Noah's extended lineage, or that the Watchers, some of them, repeated their actions after the flood. Whatever the reason, by the time of Moses, giants still walked Canaan. The Anakim, the Rephaim, the Emim, the Zuzim, all described in the text as descendants of the Nephilim, all occupying the land. God promised to Israel, and one of them you already know. His name was Goliath, from Gath, a Philistine city. The text tells us his height, 6 cubits and a span. A cubit in ancient Israel was approximately 18 inches, a span approximately 9 inches. 6 cubits and a span, that is 9 feet 9 inches tall. His armor weighed 125 pounds. Just his armor, the tip of his spear alone, weighed 15 pounds. For 40 days, he walked out every morning, in front of both armies, and challenged Israel to send someone to fight him. For 40 days, no one moved, not Saul, not his generals, not the greatest warriors of Israel. Nobody, until a shepherd boy showed up with lunch for his brothers and heard what Goliath was saying, and was confused by one thing: not the size, not the armor, not the army. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine, David said, that he should defy the armies of the living God? Why God really sent the flood? Now we can understand something that puzzled theologians for centuries. Why was the flood so total, so absolute? Why every human? Why every animal? Why wipe everything? If it was just about human sin, God could have judged individuals. He had done it before. He would do it again. But the flood was different. The flood was not punishment. The flood was termination of a contaminated biological line. The Watchers had corrupted the genetic code of humanity. Their offspring were spreading, multiplying, consuming everything. And if left unchecked, in a few more generations, there would be no pure human lineage left, no vessel through which the promised seed could come, no line through which the Messiah could be born. God was not destroying humanity. He was saving it by preserving the one family, Noah's family, whose lineage was still pure, still human, still capable of carrying the promise forward. What happened to the Watchers? The angels who initiated all of this. The Bible is specific. The Apostle Peter writes, God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to Tartarus, putting them in chains of darkness, to be held for judgment. Tartarus, not Sheol, the place of the dead, not Gehenna, the place of punishment. Tartarus, a word borrowed from Greek mythology for the deepest part of the underworld, below Hades, below everything. And Jude confirms it. The angels who did not keep their positions of authority but abandoned their proper dwelling, these he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains, for judgment on the great day. They are still there, right now, waiting for judgment, chained in the deepest darkness, and their offspring, when they were killed, became something else entirely. The book of Enoch calls them evil spirits, roaming the earth without a body, seeking to inhabit the bodies of others. Sound familiar? Mount Hermon, where the Watchers descended, where they made their covenant. The exact coordinates of Mount Hermon, 33 degrees north latitude, 33 degrees east longitude. In Jewish tradition, 33 is the numerical value of the word for cursed. And on that exact same mountain, something else happened. Matthew chapter 17. Jesus took Peter, James, and John up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, his clothes became as white as the light, and Moses and Elijah appeared. And a voice from the cloud said, "This is my Son whom I love. Listen to him." The Transfiguration. On the same mountain where fallen angels had declared their rebellion, Jesus, the Son of God, stood in divine glory, and heaven declared his identity on the exact spot of the original corruption. This was not coincidence. This was reclamation. This was God planting his flag on the enemy's ground. There is a passage in Daniel chapter 2. The king of Babylon dreams of a statue made of different materials: gold, silver, bronze, iron, and at the feet, iron mixed with clay. Daniel interprets the dream. The different materials represent different empires, but the feet are strange. They will be a mixture and will not remain united any more than iron mixes with clay. Some scholars, reading the original Aramaic, note that the word translated as "they" refers to a mixing of seed, the seed of men, with something else. And Revelation chapter 9 describes creatures released from the abyss during the final days, creatures that are neither fully human nor fully spiritual. Jesus himself warns in Matthew 24, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. As it was in the days of Noah." The Nephilim were the defining feature of the days of Noah. What was Jesus warning us about? In 2003, the Human Genome Project was completed. Scientists mapped the entire human genetic code and found something unexpected. Approximately 8% of human DNA is classified as non-human, specifically ancient viral sequences called endogenous retroviruses. Scientists call it junk DNA because they don't know what it does. But 8% of your genetic code came from somewhere that is not standard human evolution. Is this the contamination? Is this the evidence of what happened before the flood? We cannot say. Science cannot say. What we can say is this: the ancient world knew something that we are only beginning to rediscover. Every ancient civilization, the Bible, the Book of Enoch, Greek mythology, Sumerian tablets, all pointing to the same event, a convergence of the supernatural and the natural, that produced something that was never meant to exist and changed the course of human history forever. What this means for you today. Here is what this story ultimately teaches. The Watchers chose to leave their God-given role, their God-given realm, their God-given purpose, and pursue something that was not theirs, something that was forbidden, something that seemed desirable, and they brought destruction, not just on themselves, but on an entire world. Sound familiar? It is the same pattern as Eden. It is the same pattern as Babel. It is the same pattern as every human failure in the Bible. The desire to cross the boundary that God established, to reach for what was not meant for you, to become something you were not designed to be. And on the other side of that story, there is Noah, who in the middle of a world completely given over to corruption, simply walked with God, did not fight the giants, did not confront the watchers, did not try to save the civilization. He just built what God told him to build and trusted what God told him to trust. And when the waters came, he was already inside. The world you live in today is not so different from the world of Noah. The Nephilim are not the threat. They never were. The threat is the boundary crossing, the abandonment of your God-given purpose, the pursuit of what was never meant for you. Stay in your calling. Walk with God. Build what you were told to build. Because the flood always comes eventually, and the only thing that matters is whether you are already inside.